Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first annual Middle Creek Career Academy graduation. We are excited that you are here to celebrate the outstanding accomplishments of our Academy students this evening. Thank you. Please stand for the processional. You may be seated. Once again, thank you for joining us for this momentous occasion and helping us to celebrate the outstanding accomplishments of all of our Digital Media Academy and Engineering and Design Academy students. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you a digital media representative, Mr. Wesley Petty.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here on behalf of the Digital Media Academy to speak to you guys tonight. Before I get into a few things I'd like to say to the graduates and the opportunity to introduce our student speaker representative, I wanted to say thank you to a few people. So Mr. Silva, Mr. Williams, Mr. Maldonado, Mr. Harris, Mr. Trevino, if you guys will please stand for a minute for me, please. I am very fortunate and blessed to be able to work with a tremendous team of talented and creative individuals that give us the opportunity to teach you and provide you opportunities hopefully beyond what you thought the first time you walked in these doors. These guys right here have hopefully opened your eyes to a lot of things as you guys have to us, and I am lucky to be a part of their team. So without them, we wouldn't be what we are here. So I just want you to say thank you to all of them, please. I'd also like to say thank you to Mr. Martin, Ms. Ingram, members of our administration that are here, some people from Wake County Public School System that are here, and members of our Digital Media Academy board that are here that do so much to support us and allow us the opportunity to teach this course to you guys in a way that we believe prepares you for the workforce and life beyond high school and into college and provides you that opportunity. So I thank you guys for allowing us to teach in the manner that we do and provide the opportunities for them. Lastly, I want to say thank you to you guys as our graduates. Now, you guys know that from time to time, I've kind of got in the proverbial pulpit in the digital media classroom and given the quote-unquote speeches of responsibility and motivation and things along those lines. And I'm pretty sure that Tommy McCullough has a separate YouTube channel somewhere of many of my speeches. So I'll have one more to add to you guys. But I want to thank you guys for the journey that we've been a part of for the past 4 years. Every day, I know we all are amazed by the things that you guys do. The stuff that you guys do in class in terms of the projects we do, the artwork you create in graphics and animation, audio, video, web design, all the things that you do in competition for Skills USA to represent not only the school but the state, the things in the production that you produce as a live sports broadcast that no other school is doing, not only in this area, but really in the nation, to the extra things that you guys do in out the community, from graphic design to videos that we produce for things from Great Explorations to Grad Nation, Extreme Beginnings, the things that we're asked to do because of how special you guys do. You know, as teachers, we're entrusted by your parents to kind of lead you and guide you and mold you and find an opportunity for you to grow and figure out what you're going to do after you leave here, to inspire you and motivate you. Well, in honesty, you guys are the ones that motivate me. You guys are the ones that inspire me. And so I thank you for the journey that we've been a part of. The roller coaster that sometimes goes up, and the highs have had its highs, and the lows have had its lows, and times where it's made us spin and blindside us to where we didn't know what we were doing. But at the end, as we draw that, hopefully you'll realize it was quite a fun journey. So I thank you for that. Now, I want to leave you with a message in terms of my goal for you and where I envision you and where I want you to be. I've seen and tried to install in you that competitive spirit to be the best you can be. Not just to be good, not just to be great, but to be extraordinary. And I've seen through highs and lows that growth and development through you. We've been there at times where you guys have excelled and won state championships at Skills USA. And we've been there at times where some of you have burst into tears for getting second place or third or fourth or fifth, which in our eyes is still a tremendous accomplishment. But that's that competitive drive that you guys have built that'll take forwards as you go to guarantee that you guys will be successful in life. Through all this time, we've tried to push you beyond what you thought you could be pushed to a level of excellence, of greatness, okay, to the point where when you had something that was phenomenal, we let you know that it was phenomenal, and probably a few tweaks along the way to make it phenomenal. While at the same time, you know I'm brutally honest. And if you had something that wasn't your best work and you didn't put forth the best effort, I'll let you know that's real bad. But through it all, okay, the vision for us is here tonight in terms of what you guys all can be. Okay? Don't stop believing in yourself. Push yourself to that point now as you go forwards and accomplish things on your own. Our goal for you is to go out and take over the world. Make the world your own when you leave the walls of this school. We've done everything we can for you, and now we just sit back and watch in amazement for all the things that you're going to do beyond here. You have to make sure, she's excited to be here too. You have to make sure that you never give up on your dreams, okay? You can't be afraid of the unknown. You can't be afraid of failing. You can't be afraid of messing up. You've got to take that jump. All of you guys are extremely talented and gifted, and we've seen those gifts. You have to use them. You've got to go forward and take these things and share them with the world and be extraordinary. I want to share a quick little story with you that I think kind of puts into the point of where I want you to be in terms of where you do when you leave here, okay? Kind of a father-daughter story. I heard this story the other day, and I thought it fit perfectly for this point in time. So dad and his daughter have this weekend planned. They've been talking about it all week. The little girl's so excited about what they're going to do come Saturday morning. So Saturday rolls around. The dad's up early. There's a few things around the house that he needs to take care of before they can start their weekend. Little girl gets up all excited, comes flying into the kitchen, ready to go. When are we going to go? When are we going to go? When are we going to go? Dad's got a few more things he's got to finish up. So dad has an idea. Little girl loves puzzles. So he reaches over to the kitchen table to a newspaper he was reading earlier, finds this picture of a globe, rips it out into about 20, 30 different pieces, lays it on the table, scatters it around, says, okay, we're going to play a game. Little girl's excited. Says, you put this picture of the world back together, and then we'll go out, we'll start our weekend. Dad goes about his work, figures that's going to buy him 30 minutes. He can finish up everything, and then they can go out, hit the playground, start the day, all the fun stuff that they've got planned. 3 minutes pass. 3 minutes. Dad gets a tug on his legs. Little girl comes back up to him and says, I'm done. Dad looks down in amazement. The globe that was taken apart in so many pieces, the world is taped back together perfectly. Pieces of blue and green and brown that make up the water and the continents, all completely back in place. So dad says, well, how did you do that so fast? And the little girl says, well, when you handed me the pieces, one of them fell on the ground. And when I went to pick it up, I could see through the bottom of the glass table. And underneath the picture of the world was a picture of a man. So the little girl says, I sat back up, I flipped it back over, and I put the man together first. And when she put the man together first, then the world all came together. Now think about that for a minute. That's what you have to do. You have to figure out who you are and what you want from this world. While the world owes you nothing, if you work on yourself every day, If you work on your craft and your skills and your talents every day, better yourself through education, okay? Read books of people that came before you. Gather as much knowledge as you can. Practice your craft so it gets better and better every day. Work on your health so you're around to obtain that success that will come along. If you put together the pieces of yourself by never having any fear, letting the fear of being mediocre be bigger than the fear of the unknown or the fear of failure. Again, so many people have accomplished things that have failed so many times prior because they kept going. And it's in those moments where times will kind of bring you to your knees that drive and success will help you rise and get back up. If you work on yourself and work on your dreams and write them down, talk about them every day, share them with people. And the people that don't believe, let that be the fire that motivates you to go forward until you reach the goals. Don't ever settle. Keep striving until you get what you want out of this world. And if you work on yourself every day like that, then the world will unfold for you and all the success will come from what you need. That's the message I want for you. I want you to believe in yourself to the utmost level and go out and do not just good things, not just great things, but extraordinary things. I'll leave you with one word, okay, before I introduce our speaker in terms of a musical song. I'll take one from Lupe Fiasco. You are what you say you are, a superstar. So have no fear. Go out and be extraordinary, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about that message. Thanks, Nate. Now, I'm also very honored to introduce our student speaker on behalf of the Digital Media Academy. Now, I'll take you back a few years to a time that she may not even remember, which was the first time I met her. We were leaving this very same auditorium after recording either a play or a musical, and I was outside breaking equipment down, and I ran into her older brother, which I had the opportunity to teach here, also very talented in terms of graphic design. And he introduced me to her. He's like, hey, this is my younger sister. She's going to be coming to Middle Creek. You know, I think she should get involved in digital media. I think she'd do great. Well, he was right. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that was the first time I ever met her. And so her sophomore year, she comes into my classroom, and very quickly I noticed how good she was at drawing and sketching and illustration and graphic design and just digital media as a whole. As a sophomore, you're still kind of trying to figure things out. And I know at one time, graphic design wasn't necessarily what she thought her career might be or the path she might take. But early on, I hoped that it would be. For Skills USA, for many, many years, we'd only taken upperclassmen because they kind of developed through our program, and the juniors and the seniors are the ones that went. Only 2 other times prior had a sophomore ever been to state competition. Well, that sophomore year, she and 3 other talented sophomores kind of broke the mold. And the digital media competition is one we take extreme pride in terms of making sure we get first place in that competition every year, as we feel that we are the best in the state in digital media. So we kind of handpicked that team. And as a sophomore, we trusted this young lady to lead the graphics part of that team. Now, not only is that sometimes daunting as a sophomore to be kind of a lead person, but you also have to work in a team, in a collaboration, which, as we all know, is an important life skill. But again, very early on in your high school career, might make you a little bit nervous. And then on top of that, you got to give a speech and publicly speak in front of people. She didn't flinch. She jumped right on it. And her work was amazing, and they got first place. That was kind of the beginning. That continued throughout her junior and senior year. Not only did she win in first place at Skills USA that year, she's also medaled every year, her sophomore, junior, and senior year at Skills USA, each time in a different competition. She's also been a lead designer in terms of the conference shirt that every student across the state wears has been designed for this young lady for 2 years in a row. There's people from the coast to the mountains wearing a t-shirt with a design on the back that she created. Her competition this year was pen design, and she won first place again. This time, as a national competition, she'll be traveling with us to Kentucky in June to represent the state of North Carolina, and the pen that she has designed will be traded amongst states throughout the country. So people from Hawaii to Alaska to Florida to Montana to all 50 states, including the Navajo Nation, will be trading and own her pen as a keepsake for the rest of their life. Artwork that she can be proud of and things that she's done. And it's not just graphics that she's talented at. She's twice been a Reflection first place winner in terms of music and audio, and she's a great composer, a musical person. She has so many talents, but her graphics, I think, is what's going to take her the farthest. She's been recently accepted to NC State in the school design, which, as many as you know, it's a hard accomplishment to get. And we've got 3 graduates in our academy that will be going to school design, and I know her and all of them will do a tremendous job. This young lady has grown tremendously in the time that she's been here, but I know this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what she will do when she leaves here. Make sure you get her autograph on the way out. It's my pleasure to introduce you, the extraordinary Abby Carr.
Oh man, I don't know how to follow that up. I first joined the Digital Media Academy, as you now know, 3 years ago during my sophomore year of high school. It was right after that awkward freshman phase, and I hadn't really found where I belonged here at Middle Creek yet. I remember the very first day in Mr. Petty's classroom, back before it was turned into a robotics boxing ring, and how intimidating it was to see those rows upon rows of ridiculously expensive computers in front of me. It was hard for me to imagine at that time that I would ever be able to know my way around the Adobe programs in the way that I do now, or ever really get to know the incredible students, teachers, and advisors that have become my closest friends and mentors today. Well, an hour and a half went by, we started the sandwich project, mine was pronounced real freaking bad, and I was hooked. So flash forward 3 years, and the Digital Media class of 2016 has accomplished some truly spectacular things. We've been everywhere, man. Whether you've crossed the desert's bare of Greensboro to become a champion at work, breathe the somewhat odorous air of the press box during a sports block broadcast, or simply had your share of incredible achievements in the classroom every day, each and every one of you has made your mark on the history of this program. For many of us, this level of excellence has become an old habit. We fail to even realize how impressive what we do really is. Most of us can whip up a professional level advertisement or graphic design or short film without even giving it a second thought. But if you guys ever tried to explain Adobe Illustrator to someone who barely knows how to use the brush tool in Microsoft Paint, it's not a pretty picture, literally. Looking out at you guys today, I see the most talented, distinguished, professional group of students at this high school, and I feel so privileged to consider all of you my friends. I know that many of you have had the same life-changing experience as I have, and I think I speak for all of us when I say that our time here at Middle Creek would never have been this memorable if it weren't for the incredibly selfless leadership of Mr. Petty, Mr. Maldonado, Mr. Vino, and now Mr. Harris. The time and effort that they put into this program and the extracurriculars associated with it is staggering. They have had such a huge impact on my life, and I know on the lives of so many of you here today. I'd like to personally say thank you so much for everything that you guys do. And thank you to the students of the Digital Media Academy who have built such a welcoming and supportive community. I know that all of us are going to go on to accomplish some truly extraordinary things. So, class of 2016, I hope that each and every one of you takes the initiative to go out into your futures and make the can dance harder. Thank you.
Well, we see how awesome digital media is, but we have another powerful academy, our Engineering and Design Academy. And we'll now have Mr. Westbrook representing the Engineering and Design Academy.
Let's see if I can see my group down there. Okay. Every day at school, I have one main goal, and it's written on the board. My group, what is that goal? Okay, stamp out ignorance, and that's spelled I-G-N-A-N-T-S, ignorance. This is why we started the Sustainable Engineering Academy, to help stamp out ignorance related to climate change and learn about solutions to the problems. We're all ignorant about some things, but these students have learned how people use ignorance to propel their own personal and political agendas. Two wrongs don't make a right, but two rights can make an airplane. I know that has little to do with what I'm talking about, but my students are used to my corny sense of humor, so I got to tell you one more. If at first you don't succeed, then skydiving is not for you. Remember that. My hope is that you will take what you have learned and apply it to your lives. I've watched these students grow from little sniffling 10th graders, except Scott, who was probably 6 feet tall in elementary school, to mature problem solvers ready for the next step in life. One group brought in an old push mower, took off the gas motor, and attached an electric motor from a vacuum cleaner to make an electric lawnmower. Another group built a solar oven out of 2x4 wood, glass, and aluminum foil. A group built an electric-powered go-kart and hovercraft. A working replica of the Star Wars R2-D2 was built from cardboard. They became scavengers. So if your car battery or electric blower or vacuum cleaner is missing from home, well, I know where they are. I've also learned something new. Apparently, there's a restroom in this school they sometimes go to and find supplies like glue sticks and duct tape. They should tell Ms. Trevino and Mr. Sheddig where this restroom is. I've been reminded of things from this class, such as you can learn and have fun at the same time. This class is anything but boring. At the end of my teaching career, I feel very fortunate that from my early years of teaching, a former student, now a friend and coworker, is here reminding me of my beginning. And one of my favorite classes is here tonight as an ending. I began with the best and end with the best. Class of 2016 Sustainable Engineering Academy students, Austin, Isaiah, Brian, Luke, Jonathan, Jonah, Lorena, and Scott. Go and stamp out some ignorance. Thank you.
My fellow Engineering Academy students, I've been with you guys since sophomore year. All of you have become good friends of mine, and some I would even consider a brother, or in Lorena's case, a sister. That being said, I know sometimes we may get on each other's nerves from time to time. Sorry, Caleb, but you started it when you said you worked at Pizza Hut. However, we have always remained together through thick and thin. We even managed to stay sane through Mr. Westbrook's 100-question tests. Because of this strong bond we have, I am always excited to enter the class with you and see what things we do next. I would also like to take time to thank all the teachers in the academy that have helped me along my way to college. I have to admit, coming into high school, I was not what you would consider a model student. But through the teachers' guidance and friendship, I excelled in all of my classes because they showed me I could accomplish whatever I put my mind to. They led me into the engineering and computing college at the University of South Carolina on a full ride when I wouldn't have even tried. First, Mr. Vino, or as we fondly refer to her as T. Breezy. Thank you for putting up with all my antics, and no matter how much you probably wanted to smack me, you always managed to tell me that I was great, except when you caught me playing video games on the computers. Don't think you were too happy about that. Next, Mr. Sheddig. Thanks for always having a sense of humor and somehow managing to tolerate our class even through the Pizza Crane project, where I'm pretty sure there are still pieces of our projects you still haven't found. And finally, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Westbrook. The man who waited to retire until our class was through the academy. Our class is so happy, yet so sad to see you go, and we feel sorry for the classes that will not be able to experience Mr. Westbrook. Oh, by the way, Mr. Westbrook, sorry I forgot the check for $1 million that you always ask for. I'll get it to you later. Thank you all for everything you have done, not only for me, but for the whole academy. Class of 2016, while your guys' go-karts may not be as cool as my groups, I'm still sad to see each of us go our separate ways. Thank you for all their memories that it gave me, and I wish all of you the best of luck in your future endeavors. And I'm proud to say I was a member of the 2016 Engineering and Design Academy. Thank you.
Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for the evening, Mr. Michael Lau. Michael Lau is a graduate of NC State University's College of Design and holds both a bachelor's and master's degree in industrial design. He's the founder and creative director of The Loud Design, a product development and graphic design firm in Raleigh, North Carolina. His experience in user-centric products and brand development ranges from the military and defense applications to biomedical devices, consumer electronics, and many other categories. Michael is also an adjunct professor at NC State's College of Design, where he teaches courses on digital drawing and rendering techniques at the undergraduate and graduate levels. During his career, Michael has consulted for many companies and individuals locally in North Carolina, as well as across the country in Silicon Valley, and internationally in Europe and Asia. He is an Eagle Scout and a member of the Industrial Designers Society of America. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Lau.
I'm a designer, so I have to do this with pictures. I'm sure you guys understand. So thank you so much for the introduction. I appreciate it. I was really honored to be asked to do this. In fact, I sent an email asking if I could help find somebody responsible enough and accomplished enough to come up here and do this. And they said, "Well, why don't you do it?" I'm like, "Okay." So here goes. We're gonna have a little bit of fun with this. So graduation speeches are usually really like lofty and vague, and phrases like "shoot for the stars" and "follow your dreams." I'm not going to be lofty and probably also not quotable, but I am young enough to remember high school. I'm 30 years old, so that also means I was young enough to be mistaken for a student the first time I walked into one of the board meetings here and got in trouble for being in the hallway in between classes. And I'm young enough to remember graduating. I do not remember my graduation speaker at all, so I'm going to try to maybe make this a little bit more memorable than that. But I'm still not old enough to be called sir by any of you, which maybe makes me the right person to say something that perhaps might sink in. So I've had an amazing experience starting a business from the ground up in a creative field, which is historically a pretty tough thing to do. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I wish I would have known when I was in your shoes. And I can tell you just from hearing your instructors speak that you are way more lucky to have gone to this academy than I was to go to the high school I went to. So I hope you soaked it up while you were here. All right. So coming out of high school, I had two or probably three main interests. Cars, drawing, and girls were probably the third. My dad was and still is a major gearhead, which is a really contagious thing. And something that totally caught on with me. And while all my friends in high school were getting their first car, he said, "I'll buy you parts." So, like I said, cars and drawing. So this is me in high school. And I remember this day because it just rained a ton in Fayetteville, where I grew up. And I was also pretty certain that I skipped AP history class to go do this. Had my friends take pictures. So, cars and drawing. So this is kind of where the drawing part comes in. I had a fifth grade teacher that was walking around the room while she was assigning a book report, and I was sitting there drawing the margins like I have been known to do from time to time, as I'm sure some of you have done as well. And she walked by and she slaps this book on my desk, and she says, "You don't get to choose what book. You have to do this one." And I'm like, everybody else gets to pick. They're doing books by like Neil Armstrong and all the stuff that I thought would have been great. I had never heard of this book in my life, and I don't know if any of you have, but Bill Peet was a cartoonist for Disney. In fact, I think he was the best cartoonist for Disney. He's responsible for pretty much every major character that they put out in what I could probably say are the best movies they ever put out. He was the one who designed those characters, and then all of these other animators sat there and did them again and again and again. So he was, if you know who John Lasseter is, which I'm sure all of you do, he was the John Lasseter of his day. Pretty cool guy. So he wrote his autobiography, and later in my life, I got to go to the Art Institute of Chicago and see his original drawings. And it was super cool because I did my book report, I got my grade, and then here I got to stand next to the actual like Prismacolor drawn, hand-done cover of his book, which I'll never forget doing. So when I applied to college, I had pretty much no idea what I wanted to do, and all I knew was that I had been practicing drawing, sketching, and painting, whatever, my whole life. I would go up to the TV with tracing paper and trace all the Disney characters and stuff. It was like a sickness. So I knew it would be a waste to not pursue something there. I didn't really know what that would be. But I was certain about one thing. Here's the thing about college. As you get older, you're pretty much expected to become less creative. You get more jilted by the world, and back in my day we did things this way. All of that is supposed to happen. And during my sophomore year at NC State, I decided that if my desk was that small, then you can kind of see how this begins to sort of shrink over time. What would it look like when I got to my first job? So I'm guessing something probably like that. So I decided that I was going to do something about that. That was not how my career would go. So coming out of design school, I was determined not to be your proverbial starving artist. I would invent my own job. And at a time when it was really not a great thing to rely on somebody else to provide that for you. So I wisely decided to start a business in the absolute worst global economic climate since World War II. So it's been quite a ride. But I woke up one day with more motivation than usual, and I started a design firm, which is a fancy way of saying I sent out 500 emails to all these companies that made cool stuff that I wanted to work on. And I said, please, let me work with you. So 90% of those never got back to me at all. 5% said, nothing. But the 5% that said yes, that was a lot of work. It was more work than I could do. So I started doing this freelance work over the summer, and this is kind of what I turned it into. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what my company does, because all of you are probably smarter than me and can probably run this thing even better than I do. So this is some of what I wish I would have known about what it took to get this thing up and running and get it to where it is today. And we're going to look at a little bit of eye candy as well. So everything that my company does is about building a brand, whether it's through the product that a company produces, what they put out into the world, what their projector looks like, what their laptop looks like, or how they market it and brand it. So all the graphic design and marketing imagery that goes into what makes that brand go. So we have two teams internally. We have an industrial design group and a graphics and branding team. And I'm also honored to have my sister here who runs our graphics team, which is cool. So our clients are all over the place. And nowadays, I'm fortunate enough to say that instead of calling up people and begging them to work with me, I get 350 emails a day asking if they can work with us, which is a really, really fun thing. It's very stressful, but that like excitement when I've got that little red icon on the mail thing, that's never gone away. So our clients are in about every industry you can think of. They deal in software, they run restaurants, they make mattresses, they do medical equipment, they make kids' toys, smartphones, you name it. So we do this on purpose because variety fosters good ideas. And what I mean by that is, let's say that we work on something in the military world where it's lightweight and really durable and really breathable, and then we're asked to design something like running shoes. There's a whole lot of knowledge that we can take from the experience we've gotten and cross-pollinate our thinking and design something better. So the way we make sense of all this stuff is this design process that you all know so well. In the industrial design world, which is really fun because it bridges the two academies that are here today, we start with research. So we learn everything there is to know about who is going to be using what we're coming up with, what their favorite color is, what car they drive, what body type they have, what part of the world they live in. We spend a bunch of time taking things apart and breaking them on purpose, testing them out ourselves. We interview people like nurses who use equipment every day where they say, this is a $2 million piece of equipment. It's an amazing feat of technology. And I duct taped a cup to the side of it to hold my pens because they didn't really think about the fact that I need to write things down while I use it. So we call that visual profanity, where people get so frustrated with something, they break out the duct tape and bubble gum, and they make it the way that it should have been all along. So we collect data about this. We kind of become scientists for a bit. We do our research, we collect our numbers, and we start organizing this stuff into a plan for developing something new. So everybody that works with me can draw the brains out, as I'm sure a lot of you can as well. And it's a huge requirement of who we hire because on top of the fact that we need to be able to communicate with our customers, customers, we need to be able to talk with each other. And there's no more efficient way to communicate with each other than, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm just going to show you. Here's what I'm thinking. So it's these whiteboard skills and then also these pen on paper skills of being able to say, here's what it looks like, here's how it works, here's what it says about your brand. And this saves a ton of time because we'll break down a conversation in a corporate boardroom where people go, yeah, that, we need that. So sometimes we feel like that guy with the goofy hair from the old UPS commercials, you know, who drew everything that they said. So it's got to do with how this works and the mechanical function of how this does its job. How do you make this thing really obvious to use for the first time I approach it? I have no idea what this thing is, never seen one before, and yet it makes sense to me. And here it is. I know exactly how to pick it up. I know how it's born. I know how to clean it. I know that it's safe for an environment like the operating room or something. And sometimes this has nothing to do with how it works at all. It's just, this thing needs to be cool as heck. Cooler than all of the other competitors in this market. It needs to get people's blood flowing when they see it in the showroom. They've got to have it. So this initial ideation process is all about variety. We pin up whole walls of ideas before we decide on any particular direction. And then we break out the really fun tools. So all the digital renderings that we do, we're doing on screen, we're doing on Wacom tablets that I'm sure all of you can run circles around me with. We simulate things on screen, we make buttons light up, we do different materials and textures, different lighting. Here's what it looks like on the shelf in its packaging. Here's what it says about the brand. Here's what it tells me about the people who came up with it, about the people who put it into the world. So once we've got a really realistic, and these are still all drawings, believe it or not, once we've got a really realistic drawing of what a product will look like, we start getting into what makes it tick. And this is kind of where the engineering part comes in. We're scavengers too. You should see our shop. There's crap everywhere. So this is where we're kind of trying to figure out how mechanically this thing does its job. And sometimes our job is to make sure that that's really obvious, and sometimes it's the consumer doesn't care. They just need it to work. I'm really glad this baby's working right now, right? I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with buttons. I just need it to do its job. So a lot of this has to do with your perception of what this thing is. When you walk into Best Buy and you see it there, I want it to catch your eye before something else does. Or I want you to see it and understand how durable it is from the first time you pick it up. So we tell the story through sketches and models and storyboards, and sometimes it comes back to these cartoons of, step by step, here's what this person's going to do. Here's how they load in a syringe, here's how they dial in how much goes into it, they hit a button, and they inject their patient in the chair. And then sometimes design has nothing to do with the physical object itself, and everything defers to the screen. And as you all know, that happens more and more nowadays than it ever has. So our graphics team starts getting involved designing the user interface that goes along with this stuff. So we're getting at this stage down to every little parting line, every material finish, every color choice. What's this thing going to look like? How is it labeled? We start getting into this like Pixar-esque animation of how this thing fits together. It helps our manufacturing partners understand what we had in mind. And what's also really fun about this is we're able to create imagery of something that doesn't exist in the world at such a realistic level that magazine advertisements, web ads, TV commercials, all sorts of stuff are made with this material, and we've never even built one. We haven't even tested it yet, maybe. We've had people like run off and take pre-orders for things, so sometimes it can be a little hectic. This is also where our graphic design team jumps in. So developing logos and branding, here's what your print material is going to look like, here's what your mobile app does when you go to the movie theater, scan your ticket, here's how you interact with that. So moving from that traditional pen on paper sketchbook mode into digital, with developing standards for a brand. Here's what it is, here's what it isn't, here's how it's spelled, here's how it's not, here are the colors that it's going to use and what those say about the brand. Is this blue? No, not that blue, this blue. So we create things like infographics, we kind of study what we come up with, we decide what to keep and what to leave behind, and we start developing these different concepts that we eventually pare down into what makes up that brand from the beginning. What do I deal with when I sit down at the table, here's my menu, what does the paper say to me, what does the typeface say about it, the colors, the spacing, all that stuff. So we're doing this for traditional material like print, we're wrapping in vending machines that sell juice, we're making it really fun to change the temperature on your fridge, instead of up, down, let's do something way cooler than that. How you interact with devices in your everyday life and making that super simple for people that they don't need to think about it, they don't need be the engineer who came up with it. They just needed to work. What does it look like in its packaging? What does that say about people that came up with this thing? What does it say about the brand? Can I make this something that, it's considered the way that I open it? It's not dangerous. I don't cut myself. 6,000 people go to the ER opening packaging in this country every year. So we're doing this for every flavor of brand that you can imagine. And then the next step, which is one of the most fun ones for me, is we actually go build it. So if you've ever seen that show Mythbusters, our shop at work looks a lot like that one. There are shelves to the ceiling, and there's crap everywhere. We have boxes of springs and foam heads and stuff you can't even imagine. We do really dirty work, carpentry, woodworking stuff that makes a bunch of dust, foam models that I can say, cool, let me walk around with this in my pocket for a week and see if it's the right shape. If that feels good, if that's going to bother me for any reason. We do prototypes for trade shows that look totally like the real thing, but they're made of plywood, and sometimes they're held together in an embarrassing way, but nobody's ever going to see that. And then we start getting into how they actually work. So we're set up to do things like carbon fiber layup and fiberglass. We can make our own molds and replicate parts over and over again. We wire up electronics that go along with these systems. So this is a one-man stand-up golf cart that we designed. It's kind of a fun one. It's like a jet ski on a golf course. So we do some really interesting work in machining and some computer-accurate type work where we can send our 3D data to our machines and cut parts that are identical each time. So more of a manufacturing process. We do a ton of 3D printing type work for quick mock-ups and even manufacturing. So we're prototyping objects, we're prototyping how you experience and interact with that object on its screen, and what those buttons mean, and then interacting with something where you're inside of that space, designing things like restaurants, corporate offices, you name it. So getting into some of the higher tech stuff, we do a lot of work with the military, working on load-bearing systems, making things lightweight, really durable. One of the most fun parts about this job are the field trips, going to test some of this stuff out and use it yourself. A lot of work in vehicles. We've done movie props for Hollywood. We've done concept work for video game companies. So as you guys know, getting into the field of design, there's pretty much no limit here. I mean, we're contacted by companies that I couldn't make this up. And kind of letting that run has been one of the really fun parts of my career so far. So this design process that we hold so dear, that's kind of how we make sure that we're ready to go when that phone call comes in. So this has been a really interesting way to take what I learned in design school and kind of apply it to the real world. And if that experience has taught me anything, it's that it's way better to invent your job than it is to go out and find one kind of predefined for somebody who isn't you. And being creative, my team and I have kind of made sure that we create the most fun job we can because we don't want to go get a real one. It's way too much fun. So this is some of what I wish I would have known about that. And even if you aren't starting a business, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to run off and do, and that's totally the thing to do nowadays, you need to be entrepreneurial. So there's a guy named Arthur Fry who sang in a church choir. He got really frustrated with his bookmark falling out of his hymnal or whatever, and he would lose his page. And so he went back to work at the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company where his coworker had a huge failure designing super glue and came up with this really awful, tacky thing instead. Then that was 3M, that was a Post-it note, and this guy just got teed off at something he found. And he brought this back to work, and this is what I mean, where you can think in an entrepreneurial way, and you can put these things together that there is no boss there telling them, this is what you're going to do today. I need you to find out how to stick this little square of paper to the wall, but then I need to be able to remove it, but then I need to put it back up again. Right? Nobody thinks that way. And these things kind of are born out of frustration. And if you think like an entrepreneur, you kind of see those opportunities. So the opposite of that we call a wantrepreneur. And I've known a lot of those in my career so far. And this is kind of the definition of what a wantrepreneur is. So somebody who spends more time talking about starting a business or talking about doing something than actually doing it. And, this person is full of excuses. I need a perfect perfect investor. If I only had the right idea, if I only had this perfect opportunity, then I would do it, right? And we all know that these are just excuses. So I had plenty of friends when I decided that this is what I was going to do. They say, well, are you sure? Like, what are you going to do about your bills? Whatever. They say, 9 out of 10 small businesses fail in the first year. And so if you're thinking about starting your own business, I have a piece of advice. I found this to be completely untrue. And my advice to you is, don't believe everything you read on the internet. So here's a real story. The actual data here says in the first 2 years, well, we'll go with 5 years. 49% after 5 years of these small startups, these garage startups, they're still around 5 years later. 5 years that's a substantial amount of time. A lot of people don't stay at their job for that long ever. People jump around. So I figure I have a 50-50 shot of doing this if I was going to be serious enough. And maybe I'd never have to find a real job. So here's another really boring looking chart. And it's probably the last one you're going to see in high school. So relish that moment. This is a plot of how businesses survive based on when they were founded. And if you're really confused, that's okay, because tests are over, right? So here's my cheat sheet for you. Survival rates improve for a business as it ages. In other words, if you can hang in there, your odds of continuing to hang in there get better and better and better. And it also means that making it by faking it is completely a real thing. And I can attest to that firsthand. It also says that these trends haven't changed over the years, which was particularly interesting to me because I started a business in a period called the Great Recession. It was 2007, and it was like the worst decision ever on paper. It was really not the right time to do that at all. But I learned in that experience that the people who cited this recession as a reason to not think this way, be creative, and solve these problems for themselves, they would complain no matter what. They would come up with a reason to not do these things, whether the stock market was up, down, left, right, it didn't matter. What was cool about that is I got to learn that motivation wins, and these simple ideas, they win too. So my advice to you is you can do this. Take it from me. I did. One of my favorite authors, Ian Fleming, he says the aptitudes come, tools forge themselves. So it'll work out. You'll come up with a way. I like betting on myself more than I like betting on the economy because I know what I'm going to do. I have no idea what the economy is going to do, right? So the interesting thing about this is money is completely secondary to this process. And, I don't know if any of you know what this is. This is Steve Jobs' garage when he started Apple Computer. And although I'm not making any sort of an apples to apples, no pun intended, comparison between his company and mine, we had a really similar beginning. I'm crossing my fingers for a similar end. But this was me in 2007 in the laundry room of my college apartment, and this is where my washer and dryer should have been, and instead I put in a workbench because people were asking us to build stuff and we didn't have room. So I put together this process for you all of how to make sure that you're able to invent your career and you're able to kind of turn it into what you want it to be. So step one is to dream big and act small. And what I mean by that is your goals may be through the roof, but being practical about where you are and who's around you and what your resources are, and not kind of deceiving yourself on the grand scale of your endeavor. That's really, really important. So this is a bunch of my buddies from school sitting around the tables that I bought for $1 a piece at NC State Surplus in my garage. And we didn't care about a recession. We didn't know anything about a recession. We knew that we had the phone ringing, which was awesome. We knew that we loved what we were doing. We knew that we had a great time hanging out with each other. And that this stuff didn't happen by magic. And we weren't fooled by, we're going to start this enormous, international design firm. We were hanging out on my carpet, playing with scissors and fabric, trying to solve some problem that somebody had handed us. I paid these guys hourly, probably like $6 an hour or something like that. It was shameful. But every dollar that we earned, we put back into buying whatever we didn't have. So when you're in school, it's really easy to do that. The risk is so much lower. And I would estimate the risk then is probably about 2% of what it is now, now that we have a staff and people to care for it. It worked. And this is our celebratory beer after the machine that we built made the first card that we actually sold. And this looks like a totally legit little garage setup, but it's not. I had to crop out my laundry and my toothbrush and whatever else from this picture in order to take it. So step 2 is instead of dreaming big and acting small, you dream big and you act big. So understanding that step where it's time to move on. It's time to kind of scale something. It's time to see where my career is headed, and it's time to do something about it, whether you're working at IBM or whether you're working out of your garage. There comes a point when you say, you know what, I have more ambition than this. It's time for me to move on. Otherwise, you'll be working from home in your underwear for the next 40 years if you don't want to do that. Or maybe you do want to do that. It's your career. So we rented a 10 by 10 room, and if you can't tell, this is an engineer's office. It was white walled and gray desks, like surplus furniture from RTP somewhere. So we upfit this as best we could, this little tiny office, and this is our post-renovation picture of it. Although we were really small, we made sure that our image, our marketing pictures were like very selectively cropped, just like I would, cut my laundry out of our other pictures. To give you an idea of how small this operation was, that's the whole thing. It's two people at a desk. That machine you saw was at home, and we thought we were just the best. It was so much fun. But we brought our A games, everything that our customers saw. It was like ramen noodle time, where I spent all my money on the 4 cinder blocks holding up this tent. Right. So step 3 here is cherish your friends. And I was wholly dependent on the people that were helping me. I had pulled in more work than I could handle, and if I didn't do it, I had a client that was walking away. I had an opportunity that I couldn't take advantage of. So I'll tell you a really quick side story. I hired my first 2 employees at the same time, which was a really daunting task. I remember being really, really worried, and coming home and talking to who is now my wife, and just saying like, there's no like roadmap. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what hiring somebody's supposed to mean. I pay them, they come to work. Are we going to get sued? Is the government okay with this? Like, I don't know what we're doing. So on the first day, one of my employees, he came in, he put his lunch away in the fridge. And when I went to go grab mine around noon on the first day, and I'm getting things organized, I'm making sure that they're busy, they have stuff to do, I'm trying to figure out what they're going to be doing tomorrow. I go to the fridge to grab my lunch, and there's a piece of cake in the fridge, like from the party the night before, and the corner of it is still there. And there's my company logo, this thing that I had drawn up, a few months before, made in like fondant and icing or whatever. And I went back and I'm like, whose cake is this? What? How did nobody told me about this? And he goes, oh yeah, my family threw me a big party for getting my first job. And I was like, that's my logo. This is crazy. It gives me chills to this day. I learned something really important there, that when you bring people on, when you start having people that work underneath you, whether they're your employees or whether they're your subordinates at work, you take on a major, major responsibility. This is that piece of cake here. I took a picture of it and I've kept this, it's very important to me. So step 4 is don't be a jerk. These people are so, so important to your career and to the future that you're going to have. You need to treat everybody you can as well as you can, especially the ones that you don't have to treat well, because those are the ones that really surprise you and come back and help you out. So right around this time, we had a major milestone. The first product we designed from the ground up hit the market. It was a scuba diving regulator, which in case you've never been diving, is what you breathe from while you're underwater. So this is the dean of the industrial design school, Ben Brian Lafitte, who still works there. He's heading it, while I hold this thing. So a couple of months later, I was on a plane and I was flipping through a magazine, and I was like, look, what in the world? Here's this ad for this thing we came up with, and they used one of the renderings we did in this ad. So I'll zoom in a little bit to show you, this product here, and then zoom in a little bit farther, where it says the world's best-selling regulator. It's the coolest moment. So step 5 is to mark your successes. You're going to hit these milestones in your career and these milestones in your life where it's worthy of like an event, or it's worthy of you saying, I didn't even enjoy this. Now it's hopefully one of those times for you. Or it's worthy of saying like, you know what, it's time to go buy myself that right? So you have to celebrate these successes and make sure that you really it's easy to get lost in the rush of, we're so busy, trying to keep up with all this work, yada, yada, yada. There's always going to be more work to do. It doesn't matter how hard you work, there's going to be more work waiting. So it's important to take the time and pause, and it really lends context to what comes next. So step 6 is reinvest in the beast. And what I mean by that is you need to bet on yourself. So you all know what you're going to do. You don't know what your boss is going to do. You don't know what the stock market's going to do, but you are a sure thing. The investment bankers in the room probably disagree with me, but don't forget this was 2007, and that was not a good thing to be involved in. So we took this little meager money that we were making, and we finally rented our own office. We had our name on the door. Like we made the sticker ourselves. That was the only way we could afford to do it. Moved in these old desks we found. These were a few of my buddies moving in equipment. And before we knew it, this place started to fill in. And I'd stand back and I'd be like, this is like a machine. I mean, people have, they know what they're doing, whether I'm around for it or not. And it was like, it started to kind of run itself. And we got to where we didn't have to crop our pictures anymore. We could just take a picture of what we were doing, and there was cool stuff going on all over the place, and it looked like a real business. So step 7 is really, really reinvest in yourself. Reinvest way harder. So we needed more money to grow. So we made sure that we got super busy by pounding the pavement and making phone calls and stuff. And when we got super busy, we needed more people to help. But more people needed more room, and more room costs more money. So we got in this weird cycle, and I've learned since that that's business. That's what business does to you. And eventually we bought our own building. We moved into this space not too long ago. And it's been one of the most fun things of my whole professional career so far to turn this place into what we wanted it. We have somebody sitting up front in reception. That's my wife. It felt so legitimate. So it's been this really amazing. It's been this really amazing path to get to this point. From starting this in 2007 in an awful time up until now, we have 13 employees who have full benefits. And like, that's the thing I was worried about, getting sued about. Like, I didn't even know what that meant, right? And then here we are, and we kind of look at this, and we don't know where this path is headed, but I do know that whatever arc this takes, it won't stay flat, and it won't go down. Because you bet on yourself, right? You are such creative people. It's not creative to let that falter. It's not creative to let your career start to dwindle and die. It's not creative to let go of that thing you've worked so hard to learn in a place like Middle Creek. So each generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than the one that went before it, and wiser than the one that comes after it. So basically what that means is every generation thinks the one after it is doomed. So Generation Z is better equipped to learn technology than any other generation in history. So parents, you probably have a 10% chance of understanding what your kids are going to do for a living. They're going to get titles like brand evangelist and social media marketing manager, resident futurist, and chief creative officer. These are titles that didn't exist, 10 years ago even, I don't think. So you don't worry if it sounds ridiculous, because I'll tell you something growing up when I did that sounded kind of ridiculous to me. Who on Earth starts a company based on forcing people to speak to each other in 140 characters or less? And who on Earth decides, I'm going to go work for that place? Right? I was baffled when Twitter came around. I did not understand how that was going to be a thing. Facebook was already there. It did not add up. And I'll tell you exactly what I learned about who wants to go work there. 3,800 employees in 35 offices around the world, 1 billion views a month, and a $26 billion initial public offering. So, whoops. Right? It just goes to show that just because it doesn't necessarily make sense, these creative ideas, they get legs and they run. And graduates, you're a digital native. You grew up on computers. I remember signing on to AOL for the first time, listening to the modem like screech. And don't forget, I'm 30 years old. Right? You grew up with this. You've never not had it. If you want it, it's a Google search away. It has never been easier in the history of the world to learn a thing. Right? So your formal education here may be coming to an end, but like I said, you're a digital native. You can find anything you want to know, like a Google search away. And if you're not sure if you're a digital native, let me reinforce that a little bit. If you recognize this and this situation where your parent or your grandparent or whatever comes in and says, "Can you fix this?" I don't know what I did. You're a digital native. You're the one you're the go-to. So now your learning is up to you. College is tough, and the work world is even tougher. And no matter what your future plans are, this is about rolling up your sleeves. Okay? It's not about resting on the degree, it's about rolling up your sleeves. We have a lot of very smart people standing by waiting for somebody else to do the work. We've collectively agreed, stupidly, that work is the enemy. My quote here is from one of my favorite people, Mike Rowe, the guy that's behind Dirty Jobs, who's made his career running around looking at people that have invented a job in a crazy way that nobody else would ever want to do. Leaders in our world are really rarely valedictorian, and although that's sometimes totally true, they're often really self-made people. They're the roll up your sleeves kind of people. So if you don't know what these are, you have homework to do at your final piece of homework. Not all of your knowledge will come from college, or will come from your first job. And it's really, really important to remember that you're not owed that job, like was already said tonight. You're not owed a raise. You're not owed a Lamborghini, unfortunately. And you're not owed an opportunity. Over 100 people come to Wake County every day and don't leave. There's a lot of people gunning for the opportunities around here. And I'm not saying that to scare you, but the reason I'm bringing that up is you have to remember your career is not a ladder. This is not something to climb. This is not a system that you just need to work within. If you want to advance your career, if you want to do amazing things, you've got to think creatively. You've got to be entrepreneurial, whether you are an entrepreneur or not. Opportunity looks a lot like hard work coming your way. An inbox with 350 messages every day, a phone ringing off the hook, waiting the right table at the right time for somebody who is really a pain in the butt, who happens to be like a great person to have met. That's what opportunity ends up looking like. It knocks wearing overalls, not a starched white collared shirt. So, Dino Pink, one of my favorite authors, he says, the monkeys solved the puzzle simply because they found it gratifying to solve puzzles. They enjoyed it. The joy of the task was its own reward. So at work we say, you don't teach a man to build a boat. Instead, you give him a longing for the ocean, and he'll figure it out. It's gonna happen, and it doesn't matter what you say or what you do, he or she will figure out how to do that. So when we hire creatives, we talk a lot about the end goal, not about today's task list. And I hope for your sake that you never work at a place where somebody hands you a task list, because if you don't want to be replaced by a robot, which is easy to do nowadays, you can't act like one. Companies are groups of people with a common interest, and when they aren't that, they don't last. So bring your personality to work. All of you have probably got sketchbooks full of, some of the coolest stuff that any of us will ever see. You can't lose that stuff. We're counting on you to think that stuff up yourself and to make that part of the fabric of what your career is going to become. So I would also recommend that you fail early. And you fail forward. So you're in a position in life where being able to do this now is very different from being able to do it later. Take a lot of these risks now, and you want to learn as much as you can, failing as many times as possible, really, really quickly. Here's some quick proof of that in action. I don't know if any of you recognize what these shapes are. These are Dyson vacuum cleaner. And these are some of the quick mock-ups that James Dyson built before he found one that worked. So we'll play a quick game. Can anybody guess how many prototypes he built before he came across the vacuum design that worked, that did what he wanted? So, any guesses? 30. So it's not 5, it's not 51, and it's not 512. It's 5,127 failures that this guy had before this thing turned on and did what he wanted. So if it doesn't work at first, try something else. And you may find out that you love that something else more than the idea that you had to begin with. So take a chance on what you love doing now. Now is the best time to do that while you're really young. You're younger than you realize. I thought I was young until I came back to start teaching at NC State, and then I realized that I was old. Try as many things as you can now, and figure out what you love now, because your responsibilities are going to pile up. Nothing stifles your dream like mortgage payment. Take my word for that. So never let anybody make you feel like you're too young. Henry Ford learned machinery and was his town's watchmaker at age 15. Zuckerberg wrote his first line of code at age 12. You're not too young, you're behind, right? So, come on. The battle now is not becoming too old, too ingrained in your way of doing things. That's the difference with digital natives. Life is going to be about adapting to the way that the world changes around you and then being the one who changes it. So the world is a lot more malleable than you think it is. There's a lot more ways to change this place than it probably seems sitting where you're sitting now. So one of my favorite designers, Charles Eames, he says, choose your corner, pick away at it really carefully and really intensely to the best of your ability, and that way you might change the world. So another really important thing to remember is who do you have to thank? So all of you are full of people to thank sitting here today, I have no doubt. No man is an island. There's a 0% chance you've made it this far without help. And I already said to cherish your friends, so you can add to that list your family, your classmates, your mentors, your coaches, and lest I forget, your teachers. So this is mine on the left. That's the one that slapped that book down on my desk in 5th grade. And those are my parents who made sure that I read it. So thank you. Your future is totally up to you. There are so many people in this room counting on you doing something great with it, and the world really needs your creativity. We're getting way too good at building robots to ever act like them, right? So your future is totally up to you. Our future might be totally up to you. So the world needs that creativity. So my final remark for you is dream something big, be original, but much more importantly, do something big. Okay? Do something big. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
And now for the presentation of the graduates. Marlena Barbario. Robert Burkhart. Kobe Butts. Abigail Carr. Noah Fant. Elizabeth Harrington. Richard Holliday. Nicholas Honeycutt. Helen Kimball. Andrew Lewis. Mackenzie McCollum. Thomas McCullough. Irvin Miller. Delaney Mizell. Kayla Newell. Noah Pataki. Samuel Rayburn. John Richardson. Nathan Ritchie. Sydney Sozio. Taylor Vella. Tristan Whedon. And now for the Engineering Academy graduates, Austin Doty. Brian Gamble. Luke Jenna. Lorena Navarro. Richard Padlow. And now for the graduates of both academies. Isaiah Fort Rose. Jonathan Glazer. And Jonah Mayer.
Wow, you guys did that really quietly. Before I start my closing remarks, can we get an awesome round of applause for these graduates? Well, I'm just a closing remark, so I will do my best to keep this as brief as possible. I do appreciate Mr. Petty thanking all of the staff that are here with us tonight, as well as our advisory board members and central office staff. But I would also like to get another round of applause for these amazing folks that when I have the pleasure to talk to other people in the district about what we do in our academies, they often will ask me, so, how do you do it? What do you do? I say, I buy them what they need and I get out of their way. And what they create with these students is tremendously just unbelievable to me. So I did not know what they were going to say in their speeches, so you're going to be pretty shocked with the alignment between the messages tonight. Whenever I have the pleasure to stand before a group, I'm one of those guys that tries to find a quote or two that tries to match the occasion or the message. So the two quotes that I found this evening were one by Thomas Edison, and it says, "When you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't." And I think the message that we heard tonight about the failures and failing forward and learning that process of taking the things that you've done and learned here at Middle Creek and through these academies, that just because something doesn't work the first time, that just means it should give you more energy, more excitement to solve that problem. The second quote that I have is one by Stephen Covey, and it says, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." And I think that perfectly aligns with the message from our guest speaker. Every single one of you has developed the skills and capacity really to create your futures. It's of course always a great opportunity when I can take real-world application and apply it to what we're trying to do as a school district. But the strategic plan that the Board of Education and Dr. Merrill as the superintendent has been laying out for our whole community this past year focuses on the 4 C's. and it says that these 21st century skills of communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, that's what we should be trying to teach all of our students. And I think all that I have seen from these students over the last 4 years, this is not something that we need to teach these young entrepreneurs of the future. They exemplify it in what they do in their classrooms every day. These skills are certainly going to allow them to create their futures and follow their passions. As a group, they are creative problem solvers that work well to accomplish challenging tasks. These students have certainly, by the jingle of all the medals that came across the stage, have certainly left a positive mark on Middle Creek High School, on our digital media program, as well as our engineering academy. So I wish them much success with all of their future endeavors, and again, congratulate them for their accomplishments over the last 4 years. Before we do leave, I would like to invite everyone to join us for some refreshments in the Commons. And again, just thank all of our parents for being so supportive of the programs that we have. I know that this crew of professional educators couldn't do what they do if you weren't willing to drive your kids back and forth on a football Friday or who knows what, out to Greensboro. I know that really has been a family commitment behind these academy students, so I thank you for that. So again, thank you for coming. Congratulations to our graduates. And at this time, if we could have everyone stand so that we can have the graduates recess first. Thank you again. You certainly can give them one more round of applause.